People power growth, but recruiting and onboarding are expensive, exhausting, and absolutely overwhelming. I've been there, and it doesn't have to be this way. Welcome to Hire and Empower. I'm your host, Molly McGrath. Join me as we interview leaders who care about their teams and distill powerful lessons from them. This show is sponsored by H&E, helping organizations to find their best hire and empower them for success. Learn more at hiringandempowering.com. All right, listeners, we are so excited to have another amazing episode today. You want to buckle your seatbelt and strap in because we are going to go fast and furious and give you a tremendous amount of information. Listen, if you are an attorney, you are a support staff, you want to listen up, this episode is for you. And I'm so excited to have today's guest, Susan Guthrie. Susan, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Oh, Molly, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So Susan's nationally recognized as one of the top family law attorneys and mediators in the country. And I met Susan through another power partner in the legal space. We were speaking and he's like, oh my goodness, you must have Susan on your podcast. I just interviewed her on mine. She is a trailblazer. And if you're looking at the video and you're watching this on YouTube, you can see her background with her Ruth in the background, and you get that essence right away. So Susan, tell us a little bit about your backstory and what brought you today to really being a leading online dispute resolution professional.
Well, it's an interesting journey because in many ways, I bet it's similar to a lot of your listeners' career paths if they find themselves having practiced family law for a number of years and are sort of looking for new ways to help families, because that was very much my journey. For the first 26 or so years, I was a pretty traditional family law litigator with, a general practice or a matrimonial practice, boutique practice on the East Coast. And when I started moving, we moved to the West Coast, and then we now are in Chicago. This was long before COVID. This is about 6, 7, 8 years ago. I started working online, and I started seeing that not being able to go to court with people because I was now remote from them was actually a benefit because we were finding other ways to work through things. And coincidentally, I got very proficient at working online, which then really helped me when COVID started, and it helped me to help so many colleagues. In fact, during COVID, I think I trained something like 24,000 professionals how to transition their practice online. Because I had already been doing it by that time for a number of years. So and then that's just opened the door to me to know that through this medium, through the computer that we're sitting in front of right now, I can work with people in so many different ways and in any place. I can work with people and do work with people all around the world, both professionals and, those who are going through divorce.
Wow. So how many years ago? 6, 7, 8 years ago?
It's when I was trying to, how you get a number stuck in your head and you just say that over and over, but time continues to pass. I think it was 8 years ago when I first moved from the East Coast, where I had a lovely boutique law firm. I call it a terrestrial law firm, right? It was on the ground. It was brick and mortar, very traditional to what many of your listeners may have in their lives or had in their lives. And then I was in California where I didn't practice. I wasn't licensed yet. I had to take the bar exam.
Ooh,
that was fun.
That's an easy bar.
Oh, sure. 30 years after law school. So I quickly realized that I couldn't hang a shingle there. I needed to still work with people in Connecticut, but I couldn't work with them the exact same way I always had. I couldn't be their advocate in a courtroom. I could mediate with them, but that looked a little different in this new medium online. And so I very quickly started to build that practice. And the thing that I found, and again, this is 8 years ago, clients absolutely loved the convenience of being online. I just sort of grew from there. And then COVID hit, which put me just sort of in a perfect place to then help other professionals who suddenly were very open-minded to working online.
Yes. Well, suddenly, very open-minded, but there's still so many attorneys. How scary was that? 8 years ago to do that. I still have attorneys. I do legal staffing by and large, and that will say, nope, I need someone in the office. I need them in the brick and mortar, and they're inflexible in that mindset. And they're really, really struggling because law firms are growing across the country right now, but they cannot staff people if they have that old school mindset. I just love that you took that leap. How can you maybe just share with us quickly that what the head trash that you went through and taking that leap of leaving that, especially with the boutique brick and mortar building?
Yeah, well, I love the head trash, by the way. I'm going to use that. That's a good one. Because it was one of those things that it really was more for me, like, well, I've just got to figure this thing out because, the incentive of needing to make a living is a pretty strong incentive. And
Yes.
I realized, having practiced in one place my whole career for those first 26 years, I had never had to market. I had never, people knew me because I'd been there forever. And to find myself suddenly in a state where I didn't know the law, wasn't licensed to practice, and nobody knew me, no, it's crickets. Nobody's going to come and find you in the yellow pages or Google search if you've never done it there. So I had heard of Zoom and just decided I was going to try this thing. And I will say I made every mistake you could possibly make. And that's basically how my training program evolved, is I just taught everybody how not to do what I had done. I think that it wasn't hard for me. I think because it was a necessity. So once I got started doing it and I found the convenience factors to be so huge, not just for me, but for the clients, that it made it very easy to sort of stick with it and want to try and figure it out. And learning from my mistakes. I mean, I had to be very thoughtful in the process. And I would say that to the firms and to the attorneys that you're referencing that are very much of that mindset of, no, everything needs to be organically in person and terrestrial. I would say to them, that's their internal feeling. And I think they need to consider what clients want, because what they're going to find is, I'm absolutely not saying you have to work virtually or you have to offer online services, but you are going to cut yourselves out of a large percentage of the market because that's what the clients want. The clients our entire world has shifted to this online medium. And that's not just the legal world, that's the entire world. And so clients are going to find you a little bit outdated and backwards if you're insisting that everything must take place in person. They don't want to leave their office and sit in traffic and, have to take a half day off when they could do what they're doing and they know they could do it in an online format. So I encourage, just as I did in the early days of COVID, you're right. Those early days of COVID for so many practitioners, I was getting panicked phone calls. There was fear in everyone's hearts about, oh my gosh, how am I going to make a living now?
Right.
And so many of those people now have changed their entire lives and their lifestyles for the better because they've been able to go online.
I know. And I feel like I've referenced this in every podcast, but Lawyer on the Beach, the Facebook group. Are you in there?
Yeah.
I mean, I just grin from ear to ear when I see attorneys that I've known for 25 years and like, all right, guys, I'm doing this. I'm going to Costa Rica for a month. Like, what do I need to know? And then they're like, oh my goodness, I'm staying for 3 months. Like, why would I leave?
Yeah, we did it. We live in Chicago, so winters are not a lot of fun here. So we just packed up our dogs and our computers in the car and drove down to Florida and stayed there for 2 months and then went to Nashville and stayed there for a month. And that flexibility and that online lifestyle. I did a pre-conference institute recently for AFCC when it was here in Chicago a few weeks ago. And we had, I don't know, about 150 people in the workshop. And I asked the question, how many of you have made lifestyle changes in the past 2 years, but because you're online, that you intend to keep in place, that you think have bettered your life? And almost every single hand in the room went up. And that's the practitioners across the board.
Yes.
And people had moved to places that they'd always dreamed of living, but didn't think they could because they needed to be in person. People had more contact with their families. People had more free time or were better able to adjust to their families or their children's schedules. So many different things that people reported when we asked them, that it was really wonderful to see. And then every once in a while, you do run across that person who's like, no, I miss that interaction in the room and think it needs to be there. And I think it's perfectly fine to go back to that. I do think, however, you will cut yourself out of part of the market.
Yes. So are you practicing still?
I am not practicing anymore, just because I'm so busy.
Yes.
with the training and the podcasts and the speaking and the, all the different things I'm trying to do to help. I actually help, I think, more professionals these days than I actually work with clients.
Yeah. I mean, what you're doing, even in the legal space right now, you serve on the executive council for the American Bar Association section of the dispute resolution. I mean, Southern California Mediation Association, executive committee of newly formed online mediation training task force. I hear from attorneys all the time, like, okay, my practice is at a point, it's growing, it's systematized. I'm at that point where I'm ready for my swan song and to step away from the conference room, the proverbial conference room, and really empower my associates, et cetera. And this is every dream that I hear from attorneys in their specific niche, whether it be estate planning, trust administration, what have you, to give back, to train, to counsel, and have this online world. Do you at this point have any words of wisdom for kind of making that mental shift and giving yourself permission to step away for all the time, energy, money that you put in to get your law degree, to build a practice and what have you, and to say, okay, I'm going to move into this online world and stop practicing? Was there kind of a push-pull that you went through?
That's a very good point, because there is that. We become very attached to that law degree and that either Esquire, I guess, after our name, or our attorney so-and-so before our name. And now today, I have no compunction saying I'm a former, family law attorney, or I'm a non-practicing family law attorney. What I would say is we get very stuck in our groove, and the legal field is very much that way. We tend to find our place where we operate well. I knew my courtroom, I knew how to achieve results for my clients. And you get very caught in that place, and you stop seeing all the different ways that you can help people, and all the different ways that you can help yourself and create a practice that actually works for you. Because the thing for me with that litigation practice was, although I was very good at it and I helped, I'll put that in the air quotes, I helped people. I did not enjoy that practice. And in the end, I don't know that I was really helping families, with an ongoing conflict cycle, and engaging in litigation. And now to be able to be in a practice where every day is different, and I'm helping people in so many different ways, and I can work with people in almost any way that they can imagine and I can imagine, it's made my life that much richer and more interesting, and actually more fulfilling. And I make as much money today as I did as the owner of my own law firm. So it's not that I've had to give up. Certainly there were fluctuations.
Sure.
But I and my poor accountant is like, where are all these 10 I mean, I get paid from so many different places, speaker fees and my downloadable courses and our online courses and all these different things. He's like, my God, your taxes got complicated. But for me, it's not complicated, because I think, especially to those people that you're talking about who have practiced for a long time, they have so much wisdom to share, so much wisdom to share, that, they need to honor that in themselves. And there's something so fulfilling about going that step beyond mentoring just one person and finding a way to like share that knowledge on a broader scale. Whether it be something like what you're doing with a podcast, where you can bring information and put it out there on a large scale, or where you do a training, or where you give a free webinar. I mean, there's just so many different ways. And it's a wonderful feel good moment, and you can make the profession better.
Absolutely. And we're going to dive deep into what you do, what you offer in regards to your training, your study groups, your podcast, etc. But I really think we would have a massive miss if we didn't share with the attorneys, in hindsight, what would you say about your life, your energy, your spirit, your joy, your satisfaction now that you have made this leap and you are an online influencer? And you absolutely are. And you are, to your point, you are teaching and sharing and serving in a very global, leverage, optimized way. Do you have any I know so many attorneys who are doing the hokey pokey, like, I want it, but I'm afraid the whole, practice, everything's going to crumble. Going through identity crisis, all this stuff. What would you say to folks? Because you're how many years? 2 years on the other side now? 2, 3?
About 3.
3.
Yeah. About 3.
Yeah. Because I mean, anyone watching the video, anyone following Susan on LinkedIn and social and digital space, and we're going to have all the links in the show notes and share them with you at the end. You can see you are radiant and you are glowing. I could see it in your eyes. Even the first time we talked, when Ronnie's like, you have to meet this person. You have to meet, she's a rock star. What do you, if you could share with us what's available for people on the other side? The only way out is through. So.
Yeah. And I thank you for all of that. And I have to say, I wake up every day excited to get to my computer or get to wherever I'm going, because every day is different. And every day is something where I am helping people on that broader scale. And I get the opportunity to be creative. Lawyers, we don't get to be that creative. I guess you could call some of what we do a little creative. Hopefully we aren't getting creative with the facts. But in my days now, I get to, really, there are no boundaries to what I do today. And I felt that same fear. It's very hard to have found the legal path that works, right? We go to school, we go to work at a firm or for ourselves or in some capacity, we start earning money. It's, for most lawyers, it's a good income. It's a nice living to be making, but it's not in many ways always a fulfilling practice. In some ways, I think we all got into law because we want to help people, but unfortunately, conflict and litigation are a difficult way to be helping people. Yes, we're helping them, but we're also, in many ways stuck daily in a conflict cycle, which is not a very easy place to live. And when you realize that you can help people on a broader scale, one, by sharing the information that you have about how to avoid that conflict or better ways to get through that conflict, or you help them in different ways to get through that conflict, it's a much more personally satisfying way to do it. And since you're getting up every day excited, you're going to be successful at it. You'd be surprised. I know everybody says that if you see it, if you dream it, you can do it. It's actually very true. It really is.
And you're poster child for that. You really are, in regards to, because so often you can get yourself to the place of resenting your practice. And to your point, if you're not a litigator at heart and you don't thrive off it, what do they say? You know, when you do what you love, it's not work.
Right.
But I so often I speak with attorneys that are at the tipping point of burnout and because their creativity is just their entrepreneurial creativity, their service driven creativity is so stuffed because they are just a slave to the courtroom, to the calendar, to the clients, to the cash flow, to the matter, whatever it might be. And so hopefully our listeners today are hearing this and really giving permission for our entrepreneurial attorneys. If you have that burning, churning desire, you know, what does Brene Brown call it? The rumbling and the wrestling. And it's when you feel that, you know, I hope Susan's giving you permission right now for you to really know that it's possible for you to find, I know this term's kind of overused, but the joy again and the excitement again for your practice. So talk to us a little bit. Let's talk about, Susan, your online courses and what you are doing right now with your academy, with your focus groups, with your training, and who you're serving right now.
So it's been so exciting with the Academy. It started not even 2 years ago. And for your listeners out there who know my business partner, Forrest Woody Mosten, you know, I had flown across country to go take a training with Woody back, I don't know, like 5 years ago. And because he's Woody Mosten, right? And so I got to meet him there and I loved the training. And it turned out he was moving to La Jolla, which is where I lived at the time. And so we got to know each other a little bit. And he was helping me, sort of mentoring me in my mediation practice as I was getting started with that in California. And then I moved and things happened. But in the middle of COVID, he reached out to me and said, you know, I do all these trainings. I've been training mediators and collaborative professionals for 30 years. And you're the queen of online. So why don't we partner up and create an online training academy to bring these like high level trainings to mediators, attorneys, coaches, collaboratives, financials, and all different people. So we started it with one 40-hour training back in 2020. And now a year and a half later, we have, I think we're up to 10 trainings a year. We have already trained over 10,000 professionals with different, which we're offering we have all different kinds of training, advanced mediation trainings, collaborative trainings, study groups, consultation groups, marketing groups. We have all different kinds of things. And it's been so exciting because it's exactly what you were just talking about, Molly. The people who are looking for that career that actually lights them up. That's who's coming and taking these courses. The people that are like, litigation is what I do, but it's not my jam. It's not my thing. I need something else. They're either on that edge of burnout or it just never was the right fit for them in the first place, but they didn't know there was a different way. So they're coming to learn to be mediators, but it's not just that. We're not just trying to teach you how to mediate. We also want to help you figure out how to set up a practice. I mean, it's one thing to be a mediator. It's another thing to actually have people to mediate for. You're not much of a mediator if you don't have people in your virtual seats or in your actual mediation room. So we really are trying to set up a place for people to like one-stop shopping to upgrade your practice to be what you want it to be, whatever that might be. I do individual brainstorming with sessions with people just to talk about like the possibilities of what they can do, because they're not used to looking at their accomplishments and their knowledge and their expertise in a way of how can I put that out there in the world?
Yeah. And I love that you have trained the trainers. You also have, you know, where you are consulting and training on how to build your own training program. To your point, I think when you're so in it And especially if you're operating, you're not very well versed into the digital and online, like what he said to you, you're the queen of this. Let's package it, let's get it out there, and let's impact masses. And so many times attorneys are so in it. When I talk to attorneys and they're sharing, I'm like, wait a minute, why are you not doing an online training on this? There's such a need for this, even if it's train the trainers with other attorneys. I saw yesterday in the Lawyer on the Beach program, actually it was a family law litigator who said, I'm at my breaking point. I've been hearing a lot about estate planning. I'm scared. A lot of my family law clients come to me for estate planning. That's a natural next step at the end of the process. And where do I go to get training? And it was so exciting to see 2 or 3 people I know in the estate planning space. They're like, I created a course, come to me, what have you. But their courses are hiding on the shelf. You know, I know this because I know them personally and respect them, and they're sharing it in the online groups, but hitting the masses. And so many attorneys are so in it, and very, very small percentage. I would love your insight on this. While they've embraced online, they've embraced digital, hybrid, whatever terminology resonates, they're still, legal is way, way behind when it comes to really being progressive and being out front and truly, truly embracing the digital space.
Yeah,
In my
and
experience.
it's been that way, unfortunately, from day one of my
Yes.
being an attorney. So 32 years now, attorneys are very resistant to change. And I can say that I am one of them. And so I was in that boat myself. Although I will say I have always found technology fascinating. I remember bringing the first word processor into my law firm, and my 2 older senior partners were like, what is that, some sort of fancy typewriter? And I'm like, no, it's way more. But yes, I would encourage, like, I love that you're talking about, people having programs to help other attorneys to learn how to do things like that. But then you can create a program, but if you can't get it out into the hands of other people, it's like the tree that fell in the forest, right? Did it really make a noise? If you made a program and nobody knows that's there, are you helping? So this is multiple stages to this, but attorneys, for the most part, when they can take that pause, I think you're right. The head is down. It's get through my court appearance today, get those interrogatories out that I need to get out, make sure I have that client meeting that I need to have, and make sure I make it to Billy's, school play by the end of the day. And then they wake up, rinse and repeat, and just go where, their schedule says they need to be. And they don't have that time to sit down and just think creatively about all that they have, and how they could put that out there and package it and get it out for people. And it's all through the technology. It's not the same thing today. If you wanted to teach people how to do trust and estates law post dissolution, right? You can have an online program for that. Before COVID, you would have had to like rent a room and gotten people to show up in your conference room to teach that. Now you can create these, tape them on Zoom like we're taping right now, break it down and upload it onto one of the digital learning programs, and it lives forever. And it's evergreen resource of funds. I did my original online training, the Learn to Mediate online course that I did so much during COVID. That's now available as a downloadable. And every day I still get people who are downloading that program, and it's, been out there for 2 years now. And so I added a social media one, and I added how to create your own website one, because people wanted to learn more. I think it's taking that first step into the digital world. I did a presentation for the ABA the other day on using Calendly, which is like, to me, this is like the lowest of tech, right? I had 100 attorneys on there whose heads were going like this, like, you can do this, and you can like block off times, and you can do a poll, and you can get a link. And they were fascinated by it. And it's something as simple as that. But since that was a week ago, I've probably gotten 10 emails from people who are there who are like, oh my God, Calendly's changing my life. And I'm like, guys, if Calendly can change your life,
Yes.
just imagine what opening your digital world and your digital practice can do for you. You know, one quick tip to the attorneys out there: when you can work online, you can take your legal knowledge and work with people outside of your areas of licensure in a coaching or consulting basis.
Yes.
Or you can work with other attorneys. I get called in quite a bit on ultra high net worth cases, in divorce cases, because I did so many of them, where I'm really just coming in as either someone as a support person for the client or as a support person for the attorney to sort of help them with project management, because they're such huge cases. And I'm not doing that as an attorney. I'm doing that as a consultant.
I love that. I love that. We have to capture that, because what's so cool about what you just said, here is where your issue spotting and your strategy as an attorney gets to marry creativity. And so it's not an either or conversation. While you're not providing legal advice, you're really becoming the strategist that you have for all the blood, sweat, and tears and experience that you put into your practice. And I would guess that it actually is so much richer and deeper, because you don't have the pressure of, you know, getting fired by the client, upsetting the client, or what have you. You're showing up as a consultant, a legal consultant, in addition to bringing that coaching and coupling them both. I would guess, and tell me what you think about this one, that the way you show up and how your creativity gets to really mirror that strategy and the legalese, if you will, without giving legal advice, but still really understanding you're being a strategist, that it is just, you have so much more freedom with that creativity coupled with it.
You absolutely, because you don't have the constraints of I'm trying to come up with something other than CYA mentality.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's what's coming to mind for me.
Right. So,
yeah.
and you're 100% right. You've actually hit the nail on the head of the freedom. And therefore you actually, because they have an attorney, the client has an attorney. I work with that attorney. Very often it's the attorney who brought me in, not the client. It's the attorney who's brought me in to work with their client. And so, but you have a great deal more latitude and authority with the client. You can talk to the client in a way that the attorney cannot. Yes. And that's why attorneys will bring me in, right? So that I can have that come to Jesus discussion with the client that maybe they cannot have. And the client's listening to me because of my 32 years of experience in the field, not because I happen to be an attorney in Kansas, because I'm not. Where I might be taught, and I'm using Kansas as an example.
Sure.
Right. Or Italy. I do have a case right now where I'm working with someone in Italy. I know literally nothing about divorce laws in Italy. But I can talk to that client about conflict. I can talk to that client about the effect of divorce on their children. I can talk to that client about the value of their peace of mind and all of those things, in a way that their own attorney can't talk to them, or avocado in that case. Right. So you're 100% correct. And that's just one thing that I can do to help people. And that's why I say every day, some new possibility opens up for me, because I'm completely open to them. And I'm able to do that. I just had a brainstorming session with a business attorney who wants to become a divorce mediator, but she was really nervous about it and didn't know like where she was going to find her place in the divorce mediation world. And I was like, well, you've been a business attorney for 20 years. Think about being a specialist in divorce cases but it had never even, it was like a bomb going off. She's like, oh my God. And I said, you can market yourself as the go-to mediator when there's a family business, a closely held business, when there's those types of issues, be the girl, be the go-to.
Yes. Or somebody who's divorced and is sitting on a creative gold mine and they need to start their own business for the first time. I mean, the possibilities are endless, but we can't see it when we're so thick in it. I would love for you to tell our listeners about your training program and tell us about your academy and who this is for, because our listeners are support staff. So as you and I talked about right before we started recording, I see your trainings, I see your study groups, I see what you're doing as an amazing resource for even law firm to have their employees where they don't. I always hear when I do the recruiting side of things, people call me, and this is number one thing: I need an X, and they need to come with batteries included because I can't train them, especially in family law. And a lot of our clients are family law attorneys, and you may or may not know this. You probably are fully aware. There is a massive global, because we do recruiting in the UK as well, global break shortage in family law. COVID hit and people left family law in droves. Associate attorneys, paralegals, and or they went and hung their own shingle and were like, I'm going to take on the types of cases and or do mediation side of it because I'm burned out litigator, whatever it might be. And I'm going to speak into this support staff because this is where there really is a shortage right now. We have so many open family law positions for paralegals. And I'll hear over and over and over again, they need to come batteries included. They need to be trained. But sometimes there are paralegals out there that want to get into the mediation side, but not necessarily the litigation side. How can your programs, how can your trainings, how can what you are doing in such a virtual leverage platform, where do you see that you can fill the gaps for some of our family law attorneys, for the support staff first and foremost, and then we'll talk about those that are ready to really up level their mediation side?
Yeah, and we do get all different kinds of professionals coming to the academy, which is one of the things that I really love. And we continue to add new types of trainings to meet different needs that we're seeing. And we're trying to bring things that not everyone's doing. But, just our core course is the 40-hour mediation training. And I would say, so we max out, we keep them small enough that they're still interactive. So we max out at about 36 people. The last 2 rounds that we did, about 6 of the people in taking the course were support staff, were somebody's paralegal.
Yes.
Or because, and it's so forward thinking of their employers to send them, because that's where it usually is. It's so forward thinking, because if your support staff understands what it is that's going on in the mediation room, then they can actually be that much more helpful outside of the mediation room in supporting you and supporting clients. And 2 of those people in our last group, so this is only a couple of months ago, our last group was in February, 2 of the paralegals have started mediating for their firms.
Yes.
Because you don't need to be an attorney, so they can go mediate. They can mediate, and in some ways, some of the best mediators I know are not attorneys, because in some ways, attorneys, we have a hard time making the shift. But for support staff, that can be incredibly helpful. The other course that I get a lot of support staff in are my online mediation training. So where I'm training about technology. So I'm training how to properly do a mediation online or a hearing online, or because there's a lot of confidentiality issues. There's onboarding, which should be done by staff in a firm. If you're, wanting to maximize everyone's role, you onboard and train your clients how to do a good job online, because you should give them some training. You have a support team member who's in charge of that and who supports the clients. So we do private trainings where we go into law firms and we'll train, the attorneys on some collaborative law techniques, and then we'll train support staff on some of the online and onboarding. But often they'll have everybody take all of it, because the more knowledge your staff has about what everybody's doing, the better your team works together.
Absolutely. And this is a way for you to quote unquote replace yourself. It's a retention tool for your team when you say, okay, great, I'm going to give you this resource. I'm going to invest in you, put you through Susan's training, through the academies, just even from the technology side and how to handle it. And I know a lot of attorneys will not allow their team to handle the mediation, attorney, paralegal, non-attorney, what have you, and or really embrace an online hearing because you're pounded in your head from day one, malpractice. If you're doing it wrong, if there's so many moving pieces to it that I think the fear of unknown is keeping people very stuck. So I love that you have these resources. Tell our listeners, the attorneys, the team alike, how they can find out more about what you're doing. What's the easiest way?
The easiest way is the website, mostenguthrie.com. We have all of the upcoming trainings on there. I think we even have, we have one couple of advanced trainings and another 40-hour. And we also do our consulting group. So those are especially helpful for practitioners who need a safe place to go for support with, we do one with Bill Eddy, sort of the king
Yes,
of,
I saw that.
yeah. And that one sold out literally in about 6 hours. We're going to be doing another one, and he's doing another high conflict mediation training for us at the end of the year. But those consulting groups are wonderful. I do 2 marketing ones, and we really create sort of a core group that supports each other. And, so in the marketing one, we support each other in our marketing outreach and by bringing each other on our podcasts or our Instagram lives or our LinkedIn, videos and things like that. So we have a lot of different ways to help practitioners. As I said earlier, we don't want to just teach you how to do something. We want to help you be a success at changing your practice to be what you want it to be. Because we hear so many times, at the end of our 40-hour training, we do a Quaker circle, which is where everyone can just when they want to, they can say whatever they want about how what the training meant and people cry. I mean, it's just an hour because the idea that there is another way to help people with my knowledge and my understanding of the law or finance or whatever your background might be. But the idea that there's a better path and that there's a better way to help people is really a life-changing moment for people. It's addictive. It's why I'll keep coming back to the training, because you really want to help people at that level.
Absolutely. Like just quickly, even Bill's program that he's doing for you, I looked at the 12-hour training and what's being made available for that. And I'm sitting here thinking this would be phenomenal to even put your support staff talking about, the 5 potentially high conflict personality disorders, managing high conflict. Think of your intake coordinators, think of your client service directors, think of you're in leveraging your parts of for your paralegals, what have you. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, well, and it's not just the clients who can be high conflict individuals in our lives. We are going to run into high conflict people, whether they might be opposing counsel, whether they're, somebody else at work, somebody in our lives. So that type of training, Bill's training, can be, I use, everybody knows Bill's BIF, keep any communication with a high conflict person brief, informative, friendly, but firm. We biff people in my household left and right. My husband, who's in finance, is like, I got to go biff this guy. So Bill is invaluable.
Oh my goodness. I'm thinking of the person that's answering the phone, how phenomenal for your intake coordinators that would be for them to have that skill set and that knowledge, because my experience, it's matters like that tend to get you nervous about letting your employees interact with your clients because we're uneducated or unskilled, especially in high conflict, emotionally charged family law firms.
Right. And just think of I just always, even when I was running my firm, I really believe in investing in your staff. The more training that they receive, the more support you give your support team, the better able they are to step into and fill cracks or make more available time for you to do what you do. And you'll feel secure in letting them do that. I know that's a difficult part. That for me, when I was running my firm, that bifurcation of roles And that feeling like if I didn't oversee every single little thing, it wasn't perhaps going to be done correctly. You can't have that and be successful. You will burn out and explode far too like the star that flames out. But when your staff is really, up to speed, and you give them the support that they need to deal with the nasty gram email or the, whatever that might be, the attorney who calls up and yells. I've had attorneys call and yell at my support staff and make people cry.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
It's amazing what making sure everybody is part of that team and has the same knowledge. It's amazing what it can do to boost the success of your overall endeavor.
Oh, Susan, I'm going to have you back. we're going to have to talk about your study groups alone. Thank you so much for being our guest today. We're going to have your LinkedIn links, all the links to your academy, and all the amazing work that you're doing. Thank you for giving our listeners permission to really couple their strategy with their creativity, permission that it can be done to bringing an online world out there. And most importantly, for me, near and dear to my heart, access and support and training for your employees that you can give to, number one, replace yourself, number two, leverage your firm, and number three, use it as a retention tool for your employees, because this would be a phenomenal investment into your team. Thank you for being our guest.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to have been able to share with your listeners.
Oh, keep up the amazing trailblazing work.
Thank you.
All right. Until next time, that's a wrap. We've reached the end of another impactful conversation on the Hire and Empower podcast. Whether this was your first episode or you're a longtime listener, I know you can tell I have passion for people. Whether you're a business owner, employee, executive, or hiring manager, I understand the situation you're in. Hiring, onboarding, and leadership is expensive, exhausting, overwhelming, and if that's not enough, it's also time-consuming. My friends, it doesn't have to be this way. There is a team at H&E that has your back. For over 25 years, they've transformed over 4,000 law firms into efficient, effective, profitable assets for their business and made it fun to come to work again. Check out our Smart Hire solution, our employee leadership program, and the 66-day law firm turnaround at hiringandempowering.com.